When I told her not to travel with her male best friend, she posted, "Men think they own you." I said nothing, just updated my status to single, canceled the wedding, and told her to find a new place. But let me back up, because this didn't come out of nowhere. I'm 29 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had my life completely figured out. I'd been with my fiancée Brooke for 4 years, and we were supposed to get married in 8 months. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue back in 2021, and honestly, it felt easy from the start. She was a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm downtown. I worked in software development, and we had this comfortable rhythm where we'd cook dinner together most nights, binge Netflix on weekends, and talk about buying a house in the suburbs someday. Nothing flashy, just solid and real. Her parents loved me. My mom adored her. And when I proposed last March at this little cabin we rented upstate, she cried for like 20 minutes straight. Everything felt right, and I genuinely thought we were building something permanent together. Then Zoe came back to town, and it all went to hell. Zoe was Brooke's friend from college, one of those people who shows up in old Instagram photos with red Solo cups and matching Halloween costumes. They'd been close during their sorority days, but Zoe moved to Austin right after graduation for some tech startup job, and they'd only kept in touch through occasional texts and birthday posts. I'd met her maybe twice at weddings, and she seemed fine, loud and energetic in that way where you know she's always the center of attention, but harmless enough. Then last September, Zoe moved back to our city for a new job, and suddenly, she was everywhere in our lives. Brooke was ecstatic, kept saying how amazing it was to have her best friend back, how they had so much catching up to do. I was genuinely happy for her, because Brooke had been feeling kind of isolated since her work friends were all either married with kids or single and going to clubs every weekend, neither of which fit our vibe anymore. The first few weeks seemed normal enough. They'd meet for brunch on Sundays or grab drinks after work on Thursdays. Brooke would come home and tell me all about Zoe's dating disasters or her crazy boss or whatever drama was happening at her company. I didn't think much of it at all. But then Zoe started bringing Max around, and that's when everything shifted. Max was apparently another college friend, this guy who'd been in their same friend group back at State, and who Zoe described as her best guy friend since forever. From what Brooke told me, he'd moved to San Diego after college and was now back in town working as some kind of business consultant. The three of them started hanging out constantly. This whole college reunion thing where they'd go to the bars they used to frequent and take pictures at their old campus spots and post everything with captions like, "The crew is back together." I'll admit I felt a little left out, but I'm not the jealous type, and Brooke always invited me along initially. Problem was their hangouts were usually on weeknights when I had early meetings or at places that were honestly too loud and crowded for my taste, so I'd decline and tell her to have fun. That's when things started changing in ways I couldn't ignore. Brooke had never been super into fitness, but suddenly she was waking up at 5:30 in the morning to go to this CrossFit gym that Zoe belonged to. She bought a whole new wardrobe of athletic wear, the expensive kind with the little logos, and started talking about macros and meal prep constantly. Don't get me wrong, I was supportive, told her she looked great, and I was proud of her for prioritizing her health. But it felt less like a personal goal and more like she was trying to keep up with Zoe, who was one of those people who post gym selfies with captions about grinding and no days off. Then came the group chat that took over our lives. I'd be sitting next to Brooke on the couch watching a movie, and her phone would light up every 30 seconds with messages from this group chat called State Crew Forever, and she'd be typing away with this huge smile on her face. I'd ask what was so funny, and she'd say, "Oh, just something Zoe said," or "Max is so ridiculous," but she wouldn't show me the messages. Her phone also suddenly had a passcode, which was completely new because we'd always had an open phone policy, not in a controlling way, but just in a trusting way where either of us could use the other's phone if ours was dead or whatever. Our entire social life got completely hijacked too. We used to do things with my friends or her work friends, but now every single weekend was about what Zoe and Max were doing. Zoe wants to check out that new rooftop bar, or Max got us tickets to this comedy show, or we're all doing brunch at that place downtown. It was always the four of us, and honestly Max seemed like a decent enough guy at first. Maybe a little too much of that finance bro energy where everything's a humble brag about his apartment or his car or his gym routine, but friendly on the surface. What really bothered me was how Brooke acted around them though. She laughed louder, drank way more than usual, stayed out later on work nights. A few times she came home past midnight on a Tuesday when she had work at 8 the next morning, and when I'd ask if everything was okay, she'd get immediately defensive and snap. I'm allowed to have fun with my friends, which wasn't what I was saying at all. The real breaking point came about 3 months after Zoe moved back. We were at this Italian restaurant for Zoe's birthday. Nice place with candlelight and expensive wine, and I was trying to be social even though I'd had a brutal week at work and honestly just wanted to be home. Zoe was holding court as usual, telling some story about a disastrous Hinge date she'd been on, and everyone was laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Then between the main course and dessert, Zoe gets this look on her face like she's about to announce something huge. She proceeds to tell us that she booked this weekend getaway to Napa Valley at some boutique winery hotel, and it's going to be her, Max, and Brooke. Just the three of them, like old times, a whole weekend of wine tasting and spa treatments and reconnecting with their college roots. I'm sitting there thinking she's going to extend the invitation to me, but she doesn't. She just looks at Brooke with this expectant smile, and Brooke's already nodding enthusiastically like this is the best idea she's ever heard. I kept my voice casual when I asked if it was just the three of them going. Zoe waved her hand dismissively and said something about it being a college friend's nostalgia thing. Brooke squeezed my hand under the table and told me I'd be bored anyway since I don't even like wine that much, which was true, but also completely beside the point. I didn't make a scene at the restaurant, just said we'd talk about it later, but I could feel my jaw clenching for the rest of the meal. On the drive home, I asked Brooke if she really thought it was appropriate to go on a romantic weekend trip with another guy while we were engaged and planning a wedding. She got immediately defensive, said Max was just a friend and I was being insecure. I told her it wasn't about trust, it was about respect and boundaries. She said I was being controlling and that she'd already committed to going. We argued for over an hour that night, and I finally just asked her plainly not to go. She went silent for a minute and then said she'd already told Zoe yes, and the hotel was already paid for. I suggested she could pay Zoe back and we could do our own trip to Napa someday. She said I was being ridiculous and that she wasn't going to let me dictate who she could be friends with or where she could travel. We didn't speak for the rest of the night, and I slept on the couch for the first time in our entire relationship. The next morning at breakfast, she told me she was definitely going and that I needed to work on my trust issues. I tried one more time to calmly explain this wasn't about trust, but about how it looked and how it made me feel. She cut me off and said she was tired of running every little thing by me because we weren't married yet. That sentence hit different. Not married yet. Like the engagement meant nothing, like our 4 years together didn't matter. I just told her she was right and walked out. I went to work and couldn't focus on anything, and by lunch I'd made up my mind that if she actually went on this trip, we were completely done. That Friday afternoon, before she even left for the airport, she posted on Instagram. It was a photo of her with a suitcase and sunglasses looking excited with a caption asking why men think a ring means ownership and saying she was running toward her happiness this weekend. She tagged the post with wine emojis and mentioned Napa with her favorite people. At least 5 people tagged me in the comments asking if everything was okay between us. I didn't respond to anyone. I just sat in my apartment looking at that post, and something inside me went completely cold and calm. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I had an entire weekend to do it. I spent Saturday and Sunday methodically taking care of business. First, I changed my relationship status on Facebook to single without any explanation. Then I started calling vendors. The wedding venue, canceled, lost the $2,000 deposit, but I didn't care. The caterer, canceled. The DJ, canceled. The photographer, canceled. Every single vendor got a call, and every single contract got terminated. I documented everything in a spreadsheet because that's just how my brain works when I'm in crisis mode. Then I called Brooke's parents because I actually had a good relationship with them and I wanted them to hear it from me first. I explained what happened, told them about the Instagram post, told them I'd canceled the wedding. Her mom actually cried on the phone and apologized to me, said she was ashamed of her daughter's behavior and that she'd raised her better than this. Her dad was quieter, but I could tell he was disappointed in Brooke too. The last thing I did was draft an email to Brooke. The subject line was just, "You have 30 days." And I attached a formal eviction notice because technically the apartment lease was only in my name. I didn't write a long emotional letter or explain myself. The notice said everything that needed to be said. I sent it Sunday evening, and then I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I downloaded a dating app. Not because I was ready to date, but because I wanted to remind myself that there was life after this relationship. I swiped for maybe 20 minutes before I got tired of it and went to bed. Brooke didn't see any of it until Sunday night when she got back from Napa around 9. I was sitting on the couch watching a basketball game when she walked in all glowing and relaxed. She started telling me about the wine tastings and the amazing dinners they had and how beautiful the vineyards were. I just looked at her calmly and told her to check her email. She pulled out her phone looking confused, and I watched her face change as she scrolled. First confusion, then shock, then complete panic. She asked if I was serious, and I told her completely serious. She started crying immediately and saying I was overreacting, that it was just a weekend with friends, that nothing happened with Max. I told her I didn't actually care if anything happened or not because the disrespect alone was enough for me to be done. She begged me to reconsider, said we could go to counseling, said she'd cut off Zoe and Max completely if that's what I wanted. I told her it was way too late for that, and she needed to figure out where she was going to live. She ended up calling her sister Madison, who lived across town, and packed a bag that night. Before she left, she screamed at me that I'd regret this, that I was throwing away 4 years over nothing, that everyone would see what a controlling psycho I was. I didn't engage at all, just held the door open and waited for her to leave. The apartment felt incredibly quiet after she was gone, but also somehow lighter, like I could finally breathe properly for the first time in months. The next few weeks were messy, and that way breakups always are. Brooke stayed with Madison and kept texting me these long emotional messages about how much she loved me and how I was making a huge mistake. I didn't respond to any of them at first. My friend Ray, who'd been my roommate before Brooke moved in, offered to move back in to help with rent. But then about 3 weeks after the breakup, Brooke's texts changed completely. They became less defensive and more genuinely apologetic. She admitted she'd gotten caught up in reliving her college days and had lost sight of what actually mattered. She said she'd already cut off Zoe completely and that she wanted to fight for us. I'll be honest, 4 years is a long time to just throw away over one bad decision. We'd built a life together, and maybe I'd been too hasty in burning everything down. My mom had been calling me asking if I was really sure about this, saying that sometimes people make mistakes and deserve second chances. So after about a month of Brooke consistently apologizing and showing real remorse, I agreed to meet her at this diner near our old apartment. She looked genuinely remorseful when she walked in, not defensive or angry like before. We talked for over 2 hours about everything that had gone wrong, about boundaries and respect and communication. She swore nothing had happened with Max and Napa, that it had just been wine tasting and dinners as friends. She cried and told me she understood why I'd reacted the way I did, and that she'd spend however long it took rebuilding my trust. Against my better judgment, and definitely against Ray's advice, I agreed to give it another shot. We decided to take it slow, start over almost like we were dating again. She moved back in about 2 weeks later, and for the first month things were actually really good. She was attentive and present in a way she hadn't been in months. No more secret group chats, no more late nights out, no more Zoe drama. We went to couples counseling twice a week and started talking about maybe planning a smaller wedding for the following year. Ray moved out again, though he told me I was making a huge mistake and that I'd regret this. I thought maybe we'd actually make it through this and come out stronger than before. Then about 6 weeks after we got back together, I found her old iPad. She'd left it charging in the closet, and I grabbed it thinking it was mine because we had the same model. When I unlocked it, I realized it was hers, and I was about to put it back when I saw iMessage notifications popping up. Here's the thing about iPads. They sync to your phone and keep message histories even after you delete them from your phone. I know I shouldn't have looked, but something in my gut told me to check. I opened her messages with Max, and my stomach just completely dropped. The messages went back months, way before the Napa trip even happened. Max had been telling her he'd always had feelings for her since college, that he thought about her constantly, that seeing her again made him realize she was the one who got away. And Brooke had been responding and not shutting him down at all. Messages like, "You always knew how to make me feel special," and "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we dated back then." There were inside jokes and late-night conversations, and this whole emotional affair I'd known nothing about. Then I scrolled to the Napa messages and found photos she'd never posted publicly. Pictures of them holding hands on a vineyard tour. A photo of them kissing at sunset with wine glasses in their hands. A selfie of them in bed together with the caption, "Best weekend ever." I felt physically sick sitting there on the closet floor. I realized the woman who'd been sleeping next to me for the past 6 weeks, crying about second chances, had been lying to my face the entire time. I didn't confront her immediately. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my email. When Brooke got home from work that evening, I had all the evidence pulled up on my laptop. I just turned the screen toward her without saying a word and watched her face go white. She started with denials, then excuses about how it was just emotional support. I pulled up the kissing photo and the bed selfie and asked her to explain those. She broke down crying and admitted they'd hooked up that weekend in Napa, but swore it was just once. I told her to pack her stuff and get out immediately. This time there was no begging that would work, No counseling, nothing. Ray helped me change the locks that same night. Brooke went back to Madison's, and I blocked her everywhere. But here's where karma really hit. About 2 weeks later, a mutual friend told me Max had a serious girlfriend in Portland the entire time, over 2 years together. His girlfriend found out about Napa and confronted him. He threw Brooke under the bus completely, said she'd pursued him, then blocked her everywhere. So Brooke had destroyed our 4-year relationship for a guy who used her and ghosted her. She'd lost me, lost Max, lost Zoe, who'd been fired for fraud, and was living on her sister's couch unemployed. Meanwhile, I got promoted at work, started dating someone new named Zara who actually respected me, and felt better than I had in over a year. Last I heard, Brooke moved to a different city because too many people knew what she'd done. Sometimes I think about those 4 years and wonder if any of it was real, but mostly I'm just grateful I found out who she really was before we actually got married. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.